Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
He said he wanted to fundamentally transform the country. That was Barack Obama. Justin Trudeau says Canada is the world's first post-national state. We're getting it. We're getting both of those things at a rapid pace. Tonight, we're going to talk about that against the backdrop of chaos, protests escalating in both Canada and the United States, in Western society in general, against a backdrop of war in Gaza, war in Ukraine. And we're going to try to make sense of it all tonight, because it is difficult to know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Stay with me. A lot more ahead tonight on this edition of Maverick News.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Well, that was kind of strange. Let me... There I am. I'm back again. Everything just went completely haywire with our computer system. But I'm back. Sorry about that. A little bit of a disruption. I don't know what you're even seeing on your end at this point, but we are live again on all channels, it appears, so we will continue with the broadcast. Let's start off with what's going on, really, mostly in Toronto here tonight. Well, through today, yesterday as well. Things have really been escalating on the streets with these pro-Palestine protests. A lot to talk about here. Here's to start things off. Here's a clip from Kareem Assad covering another protest in Toronto, and in this case, she's saying that somebody shouting a slogan. She says is straight out of the, what's her word here? One woman uses a line straight from the convoy protest circuit. Quote, "What the hell is this? China is more free than Canada. This is not freedom." Here's the video as protesters clash with police.
What the hell is this? China is more free than Canada. This is not freedom. It's taking a long time freedom to...
But there's a lot more graphic stuff than that tonight to show you out of Toronto and parts of the United States as well. Much more dramatic footage. Here's another confrontation between pro-Palestinian protesters and police on the streets. It's getting heated out there.
You're being recorded. I haven't touched you. Don't touch me.
Come down. Don't be tough on people.
I haven't done anything to you.
Nobody touched you. Don't push me! There's no warning! I didn't do anything! You're just hurting me! I'm a Canadian! You are hurting people! What's your bad number? And his name. I should have your badge. You're pushing me for what? Hold your officer. Hold your officer. Why? Don't stop us from getting our message across. We know. Strong and tough. What can I do? We are here to spread a message. We are here to tell the people that my friend is to us and to Palestinians across the world. The guy in the suit? These fucking groups will let car thieves go, but they arrest protesters. Hey, sorry.
Fucking pig!
Shame on you! 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 They were just shame on you! Shame on you!
There's somebody here.
There have been arrests over the past 24 hours in Toronto. The mood seems to be shifting. The police attitude seems to be shifting a little bit as well. Up until this point, police honestly seem to have been afraid to do much of anything, but with contact now being made between protesters and police, and in some cases, police. There's a report that in one case, an officer had horse manure thrown at him. There was another case, apparently, a report of an officer being assaulted. As a result, we're seeing arrests. Here's a police media release that we have. Toronto Police Service is making the public aware of arrests made at a demonstration. Toronto police continue to attend demonstrations and to preserve people's right to protest while also enforcing the law. Police have cautioned demonstration organizers and drivers specifically about not having people riding in the bed of the truck or on the attached trailer while the truck is in motion. As stipulated in the Highway Traffic Act, police have been clear that this stipulation will be in effect at all demonstrations. On Saturday, March 30th, 2024, officers were conducting crowd management at a demonstration at the Gerrard Street and Parliament Street area. It is alleged that a man was operating a truck with occupants in the bed of the truck while it was in motion. The driver was charged with stunt driving under the Highway Traffic Act. The vehicle has been impounded for 14 days and his driver's license suspended for 30 days. While police were seizing the above-mentioned truck, demonstrators became aggressive and assaultive toward officers. It is alleged that a woman threw horse manure at officers. Asia Rami, 24 years old, has been charged with assault a peace officer with a weapon. She will attend the Ontario Court of Justice Thursday, May 16th at 11 a.m. A woman intentionally used a flagpole to spear at an officer. Celeste Jayoying Furlat-Bois, 27 years old, of Toronto, has been charged with assault a peace officer with a weapon. She will attend Ontario Court of Justice May 14th. Definitely an escalation. Now, in addition to that, the Toronto Police Service, or Police Association rather, has issued a statement as well because they're seeing so much escalation on the streets. They see the safety of officers in jeopardy. Here's a look at another incident. I'll get to the statement from the police association in a moment. This is an incident here where a police cruiser came very close, apparently, to hitting some protesters who were on the street praying while the street was closed. Subsequently, shortly after this vehicle goes by, this police vehicle, the police took steps to reopen the road. And we're told that, here we go. We're told that some personal belongings of the people praying were run over. This is just video of the people praying. And another angle on another part of the protest in Toronto here, where police bring in the horses, and of course you have two different points of view on this. On the one hand, you're seeing some people who are upset with these ongoing protests, speaking favorably about the police reaction, saying it's long overdue, while people who are supporting the protesters are saying that this is police overreaching and becoming too aggressive.
Everybody take your phones out and record! Everybody take your phones out and record! Everybody take your phones out and record!
Who's winning the war in Gaza? Oh. Where's the war being fought? Is the war being fought in Gaza, or is it being fought right there? I would argue it's being fought on multiple fronts, and I would argue that Hamas is winning the PR war. And if you're winning the PR war in 2024, you're winning the war. This is the Toronto Police Service. Toronto Police Association, TPA. This is their statement. Our members are away from their families and loved ones on this Easter weekend, compelled to attend these protests to ensure public safety. These officers ensure that people can protest safely, peacefully, and respectfully. When protesters choose to commit criminal acts, they will be arrested either immediately or later. When protesters block roads and infrastructure that impacts our ability to respond to emergency calls. Our members deserve the same respect that they extend to the protesters. Anything less is unacceptable. It's a tough gig these days being a cop because public trust has been undermined in policing. Why is that? It's because government politicized policing, because they have ordered police during the pandemic to do things that we in this country, honestly, in my lifetime, I've never seen them do before. Enforce government mandates in ways that really put into question whether they were violating people's rights. As a result, people who were very pro-police before became very anti-police after. Public trust in our institutions, in our police services, in the government that we have, it's been undermined. Very low public trust, little confidence. As a result, it's increasingly difficult for police to do their jobs on the streets. And when the protesters who were targeted during the pandemic, the convoy protesters, when they watch what's been going on for now months on the streets, where other protesters have been given pretty much free rein and have been treated honestly with a different approach, largely, or it appears, or that's the opinion of many, then they lose additional confidence in the system. And now police are pushing back. The problem really is here, and this is what we've addressed in some interviews with some experts here, some people, some former police officers that I've talked about just directly, and that is that police in Canada have gotten away from their old school principles, from the old school approach to policing, which was community-based policing, which really was largely about connecting with the community and applying the law evenly to everyone. Instead, they've now embraced progressive policing policies, which is in itself very political. And politicians have been very successful generally using local police service boards and, by extension, municipal councils, taking direction from provincial governments and, by further extension, the feds, to become sort of politicized and have become a tool of government, which every police service always is, but you need some degree of separation. And we've seen less and less of that. As a result, now police are paying the price in the streets, not just because of what their actions have been, but because of what government has compelled them to do over the past 4 years. It has unfortunately put everyone in greater danger now, both the protesters, the public, and police. All of us. That's the tragedy of all of this. And it destabilizes our entire society as a result. Where safety really does need to be the focus, we now have instability instead. And a very volatile situation where some protesters feel so emboldened that they had someone actually try to apparently spear an officer with allegedly some sort of a pole. Here's more on the streets. Or actually, we've already seen this. I'm going to pull it back. Here we go. More here. You are witnessing a fundamental transformation of the country right here. We're witnessing it. More than that, what I would say is you are witnessing some sort of slow rollout of what is called a color revolution in this country, which is a larger effort to destabilize the country and even destabilize the government by extension. Here is...
You're not allowing us to take a video of police brutality? Come on! Oh, he's beat up! He's beat up! He's bleeding! He's bleeding! This is your kid! Oh my God! KKK! I don't want your all the same! CBS! KKK! I don't want your all the same! You're not allowed...
So they're comparing the Toronto Police Service now to the KKK. You believe that? That's how the public views the Toronto Police Service. People who are out there protesting. And honestly, I question how organic these protests are. I think you would find that a lot of these people, well, you will see some genuine pro-Palestinian protesters in there. I guess they're all genuinely pro-Palestinian, but I'd bet you a donut that a lot of these people are the same people who come out for the Occupy demonstrations, for the BLM demonstrations, Antifa demonstrations. That's who these people are. And they're coming from largely the left side of the political spectrum with some overlap coming around onto the libertarian anarchist side. That's who they are. And you have some paid protesters in there too. I'm pretty sure of that. Check this one out. What are they calling for? Revolution? Is anybody listening? An intifada? If somebody says something, you might try listening. What's the solution? A revolution? Intifada revolution. What does that mean? Where? I see. These guys are losing the war? Interesting. That's what's going on in Canada today. That's Canada today. How about this? We've got more. Oh yeah. This is Canada. March 31st, 2024. It's getting, there's escalation every week. Every week there's more and there's more and there's more and there's more. And these are constant, these protests. These go on through the week. They get bigger on the weekends. And the bigger they get, the more difficult it becomes for police to control them. It seems nobody likes the police anymore. It makes it more difficult for them to do their job. How did we get here to this point? And it ain't over. It's guaranteed to get worse in the streets. Guaranteed. On this Easter Sunday, we saw an anti-Israel protest group interrupt an Easter Mass at the famous St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. And here we go.
señor.
Religion and politics. Doesn't get much more volatile or dangerous than that. And as I say, guaranteed things are going to escalate even further. And all this happening while we see a massive flood of new immigration. In Canada, we've seen just within the last day, Statistics Canada confirmed that our population in Canada has now reached 41 million. That's an increase of 1 million people in just the last 9 months. Less than a year. That is happening because of immigration. Canada is not the only country experiencing massive immigration. And why is that happening? Well, it's because Justin Trudeau says Canada is the world's first post-national state. He's a globalist. He says Canada has really no actual identity or culture. But it's not the only place. Sweden's also having trouble or difficulty with it. Britain, all Western countries are awash in immigration, including the United States.
Nej, men alltså min son har blivit rånad
Says, well, my son has been robbed 3 times. This is a man from Sweden talking about immigration
3
there.
gånger. 2 gånger utav somalier
Twice by Somalis and
och
once
en
by
gång ifrån
Arabs.
araber.
He's 19 years
Och han är
old.
19 år och han är ju
He's marked for life. He doesn't dare go out alone.
mer eller mindre märkt för livet. Han vågar ju inte gå ut själv. En annan gick
There were no problems in Gothenburg when I was his age.
ut i Göteborg och när man
There were no problems.
var i den åldern var ju inga problem. Idag är det ju
Today it's horrible.
fruktansvärt. Hade jag haft en dotter
If I had a daughter, I would follow her with a loaded
hade jag
shotgun.
förmodligen
he
gått
says.
med en laddad hagelbössa och följt efter henne ungefär 10 meter bakom. Det är ju
It's absurd.
helt absurt. Så
This immigration is ruthless to the Swedish people. They've betrayed our country.
ja, nej, det är, alltså, den här invandringen är totalt hänsynslös mot det svenska folket. De har förrått vårat land. Jag är 60-talist. Jag vet hur det var att växa
I was born in the 60s. I know what it was like growing up in the
upp
70s
på
and
70-80-talet.
80s.
Tittade
I see today it's unbelievable. My old suburbs, Hisingen, Angered, they're off limits
ja,
now.
det är helt otroligt. Jag åker till mina gamla förorter på Hisingen, Angered. Det går inte att gå där. Det är ju helt
It's unbelievable.
otroligt. Alltså, ja, jag
I can't find words to express my disgust with this
kan inte
government.
uttrycka det med ord. Alltså avsky för den här
And that's the way people are feeling. That's what people are experiencing. And police are being left to deal with the fallout, right? Which further breeds more distrust and more anger and more dissatisfaction. Here's a clip of some pro-Palestinian protesters talking to a Jewish person, accusing them of, just making a pretty negative comment about being inbred. Here it is.
How many generations of inbreeding did it take to make you? Just one. Just one. Look at that. Look at that.
That's what's going on the streets. Oh boy, let's take a little bit of a break. I'm going to give you some perspective on this when we come back on the other side. Don't go away. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So, you know, this is actually quite complicated because it is not just good versus bad, black versus white, one side versus another. It is a new political reality, both locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. Everything is in a state of flux right now. We're entering a new era, a new political reality. As I say, Canada now hitting 41 million. You're seeing mass immigration around the world. You're seeing a new economic reality because we're seeing a new military reality, a new geopolitical reality, a multipolar geopolitical reality where the United States is no longer the main or sole superpower in the world. Not that it ever really was, not since World War II. Russia's always been there, but now Russia reasserting itself as a great power. You have China as a great power now. You have these BRICS nations asserting themselves and challenging the West, the United States, for economic supremacy. The U.S. dollar under severe pressure. These are the new realities that are unfolding. Everything you're seeing on the streets in Toronto, in New York, across the Western nations, everything you're seeing with these protests, the immigration, all of this stuff, it's all connected to the war in Ukraine. It's all connected to what's going on in Gaza. These are not isolated or pocketed issues. We're seeing the decline of the economy. I don't know what will happen in the end as a result of all the inflation that we're experiencing. We're seeing, though, capitalism being challenged again and blamed for all of these problems, when in reality, the side that everything is capitalistic. Even if you look at the BRICS nations themselves, well, some people are saying, Western countries, capitalist pigs. Even these other countries that people may look at and say, well, Russia, Iran, India, China, even China, these countries, they're all following a capitalistic model as well. They're creating their own currency to challenge the US dollar, their own capital. They're approaching it with, maybe a slightly different kind of set of policies, but they're starting out fresh, but it's still capitalism. Ultimately, that's what it is. That being said, it's really a geopolitical power struggle right now. One that's been really going on since World War II. After World War II, we saw the expansion of the Soviet Empire. And then afterward, we saw, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, we saw NATO countries push east. That's what happened. Even though there were promises made that NATO wouldn't do that, that's what happened. Maybe I'll show you this now. I will. This is, let's take a look at this animation. This will show you the expansion of the Soviet Empire just after World War II. And then I'm going to show you what happened after the fall of the Berlin Wall in the expansion of NATO. And this is the 75th anniversary of NATO. Okay, let's bring this up here. Expansion of the Soviet influence at the end of World War II. Here we go. So you can see these, you've got the USSR. (1940 to 44), Romania, Estonia. And this is communism spreading through these bloc countries. Lithuania. Poland, Eastern Poland, when the country was divided up, right? Bulgaria. Yugoslavia. Because you remember Poland was divided and then it became part of the USSR. Albania. East Germany. After the war, Germany split in two. Berlin Wall goes up. Romania. Western Poland. '47 Hungary. Czechoslovakia. 48. So over time, Soviet Union, Stalin, and then subsequent leaders expanded. Now, on the other side, this is the NATO alliance from 1949 on. Let me just make sure I've got this cued for you properly, and I think I do. Okay. So, and let's see how this, you get the pendulum swinging back the other way. I'm going to slow this down a little bit. This runs pretty quick. 1950, you see the blue being added, the blue countries. Turkey, 1952. You see United States and Canada already part of this, and 53, 54. Everything kind of sits. Okay, so in 55, you've got all these red countries. That's all part of the USSR. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, etc. Now we're getting into the Cold War, right? All through the 60s. It's all pretty, much static, a little bit of a change. Now you're into the 70s. This is when I was a kid. I remember all of the, what was going on in the 70s. This is when we were living under the threat of, possible, mutually assured destruction, Cold War, Warsaw Pact. 1980s, now you're going to start to get into Reagan, right? And the mid-80s, the Reagan era, here we go. You got more blue starting to show up on the map. And then 1990. Now, this is where things really start to change. Because now we're going to get into the fall of the Soviet Union. And bam, right there, November 1990, and all that goes white. Now we're into a whole new situation, right? So this was an opportunity for the West to maybe work with Russia, extend an olive branch, and create a new era of peace. And this is when we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. And Reagan went there and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And there were assurances made that if they did that, we wouldn't push any further toward Russia with NATO. But after 1990, this started to happen. Okay, so more countries falling, just going white, pushing back, pushing back. Now, NATO's not in there, but these other countries are no longer part of the Soviet Empire. Doesn't really exist. Now it's being reconstituted into something sort of new. 1995, 96, 97 coming up. And bam, 99. Remember? Poland, Solidarity, and then Poland, Hungary, 2001. You're going to see more blue popping up on that map. Now, this begs the question, Estonia, Romania, Hungary, a lot more blue there, getting closer and closer to Russia. A couple of those countries right up on the Russian border. Do these countries have an existential right to exist independently? If they join NATO, are they truly independent? Or do they become a puppet state of the United States or Europe? Or are they ensuring their autonomy and their sovereignty by becoming part of NATO? These are complex questions. And even though these assurances were made to Russia by Reagan and the West to not push further toward Russia, Does that hold over time? Does Ukraine have a right to self-government? Should other countries be in there at all, influencing anything? I would say probably not. But the reality is we've had influence from both Russia and the United States, from NATO and Russia in these countries. So now you've got a lot of blue pushed right up against Russia's border. And then these become very complex political questions. Most people in the West not even really paying attention. I think if you ask people and they were honest, they probably wouldn't, in the U.S. or in Canada, the average person probably would have to admit that they hadn't paid much attention to this at all. Maybe just surface level stuff that they'd seen through mainstream media. Now we're into like 2017, 2018, 2019, you know. We've gone through Trump, now we're getting into Biden. Oh, and there's Russia taking back this section of Ukraine, right? We talk about that. Was that justified or not justified? Depends on your point of view. Two different perspectives on it. One from the Russian side, one from the West. Maybe other perspectives as well. It is complex. Finland, last year, joining NATO, right up against Russia again. So that we've added another country on the NATO side. And there you go. And that's kind of where we sit right now in this war in Ukraine. And we're dealing with, again, another aspect of this global transformation, not just a fundamental transformation in the United States itself. But here's the thing. This gets really complicated now politically here at home as well, because the war in Ukraine is raging, right? And it's been going on now quite a while, much longer than any of the pundits told us it was likely to, with people on one side saying, you know, the United States, NATO, we're going to supply all these weapons to Ukraine, and you know they can push the Russians back when Vladimir Putin finally decided to go in there, seeing Ukraine as an existential threat. But on the home front, this has been volatile, unstable. I said from the beginning this conflict didn't need to happen, and yet it happened. Now, you can, regardless of whether you're in favor of, you know, which side you're on, it's happening. And so here we sit in the West, and we now have to deal with this war in Ukraine. A lot of people not in favor of it, don't want to fund it. There's the key to a lot of this, is the funding. We've seen Biden with connections to Ukraine, his son, Hunter Biden, with connections to Ukraine, and Burisma, and a lot of money. And we know that Ukraine has been a corrupt country, and then all these weapons start to flow to Ukraine, and all this money starts to flow to Ukraine, and there's all kinds of evidence to show that some of this has been siphoned off, and been some of these weapons even sold on the dark web, on the black market. We've seen Joe Biden pull out of Afghanistan and leave billions of dollars in weapons for the Taliban. It makes you wonder whose side he's on. And then on the other side, there's Trump. People can't seem to make sense of Trump either. On the one hand, he seems to be pro-America, pro-Israel, but doesn't want to fund this war in Ukraine. We're seeing this public relations propaganda campaign exercised in the West as well, I think, to undermine support for the war in Ukraine. And it's hard to know kind of where things sit and who's on this side, who's on that side. It all seems to blur together. When I talk about that, case in point, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, in the way that I wanted to rule this information out tonight. But we've seen this NATO expansion. And you have, when I say it's complicated, it certainly is domestically. You don't really know. Sometimes everything is upside down and opposite, and it's hard. It doesn't even make sense who's supporting what and who's supporting whom. That's why you have these people who I would characterize as rhinos, or some people might call them never Trumpers. You have these conservatives who have been so staunchly opposed to Trump, like just going to great lengths to stop him. I don't know if you are familiar with, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, with the Lincoln Project. So the Lincoln Project is a group of self-described conservatives. The husband of Kellyanne Conway, who helped Kellyanne Conway, of course, worked for Trump, helped get him elected, was one of the key people who did that. But her husband is one of these never Trumpers. Very strange situation. So here she is working for Trump. George Conway, he's a never Trumper. And he's one of the original people behind the Lincoln Project. They're the people over there. Rick Wilson is another one. They've raised millions and millions of dollars, all of which has been used to attack Trump all the way along. They see him as some sort of a threat. These are conservatives. So in a way, it doesn't seem to make sense. But why is that? It's because they are more traditional Republicans. They're not MAGA. They see Ukraine as an integral part of national security. They see Ukraine as being a country that preserving its sovereignty and independence from Russia. They see that as in the interests of the United States, the national security interests of the United States. And I do understand the perspective. It's because, especially now that the country is in play and is because it's at war, and the United States has vowed to support Ukraine and provide the weapons to ensure its sovereignty and not have it fall into the hands and the control of Vladimir Putin. If the United States doesn't live up to that, it's going to create cracks within the NATO alliance. It's going to further erode trust in the United States as a reliable partner, a reliable defense partner. That's the reality. So while the war didn't have to happen, now that it is happening, if Ukraine falls, that's going to really damage the reputation of the United States and NATO as a reliable partner. How can any country think that they can rely on NATO or the U.S. to defend them when they just let Ukraine fall? Why is that happening? It's because of the funding. We've seen Zelensky in the past month come right out and acknowledge that Ukrainian forces are being pushed back, are being forced to retreat because they're running out of ammunition. Why is the ammunition not coming? It's because this bill, this funding has been delayed because of, honestly, Trump and MAGA, which have tied the funding for Ukraine, this new round of funding, to domestic issues and specifically to border security in Texas. So the never Trumpers are of the mind that it's Trump that is blocking, and MAGA blocking additional funding for Ukraine. And indeed, that is actually true. That's why they're saying that Donald Trump is a stooge or a puppet of Vladimir Putin. And it does make it easy to attack him on that front when you look at it from that perspective. As a result, I think they've raised over $85 million or something like that since getting started to create attack ads against Trump. And this is the narrative that they're spinning up against him. This is their latest attack ad, and it's pretty damning. Here, let's take a look at it.
When Donald Trump was president the first time, the Russians wanted him to win.
He called him colorful, talented. He said Donald Trump is the absolute leader of the U.S. presidential race.
They helped him. He won.
Господина Трампа избрал американский народ. Можно спорить, но нельзя проявлять неуважение.
He never forgot it.
Do you welcome his support?
I like that he said that.
Over and over, Trump put Putin and Russia over American interests.
The problem is not that Putin is smart. The real problem is that our leaders are dumb.
He wants Putin to win in Ukraine.
I said, this is genius.
Told him Russia can do what it wants in attacking our NATO allies.
I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want.
He doesn't have a good relationship with Putin. He owes Putin. Trump's not just on the other side, he's on the take.
Powerful stuff. Of course, what we're getting with Biden is war. So the question then becomes, Trump gave us peace, but is peace preferable if you are allowing Putin to get what he wants? Or would this have ever happened if Trump had been still in the White House? Would you have had the war? I would argue that it wouldn't have happened under Trump. And bringing Trump back would probably bring us back to a place of peace. But it depends on your perspective on this. If Ukraine falls now, though, it's going to undermine trust in the U.S. And we've seen many instances in recent history where the United States has failed to live up to promises on the foreign policy front and defense front for various groups, in particular groups that have been sort of commissioned to carry out the work of the United States militarily in the Middle East, in particular the Kurds, which have been left out on several occasions, left out hung to dry, and in many cases they've had their people killed, and yet they still end up coming back and aligning themselves with the United States. But trust there has been severely undermined, and so you see cracks even developing now in the NATO alliance. You can see it sort of behind the scenes becoming exposed to the public as things escalate with this conflict between the East and the West. And we're getting this new constitution, reconstitution of really, I think, in some respects, more traditional Cold War alignments with some variations in there. And the variations are really manifesting themselves in the Middle East. In particular, we are seeing this new alliance between Russia and these Arab countries that are militarily, ideologically, religiously opposed to the even existence of Israel. And this October 7th attack happens, and you have the world up in arms. You have the United States becoming increasingly isolated as its support remains integral to the very existence of Israel. This growth in anti-Jewish sentiment, and I'm going to say anti-Jewish and anti-Zionist sentiment, both, however you want to describe it. Both are true. I think people play word games, honestly, with this stuff. And Israel is being used as a chess piece, just as the people in Palestine are being used as a chess piece. The reality of the situation is that there's an ideology in play, a religious belief system in play here on the Hamas side that people in the West simply do not understand. And it is an ideology and a conviction that is based on martyrdom. So as a result, what you really end up with here is this very complicated method of warfare that is predicated on public relations and propaganda and victimhood. It's because you have the October 7th attack happen and then this disproportionate, in the view of some, response from Israel being described and promoted as a genocide. So the Palestinian people and the children in particular who are being killed are then displayed as martyrs. Martyrdom, that's the key to everything here. So that martyrdom is then used to fuel rage and sympathy worldwide for the Palestinian cause. You end up with protests in the streets like the ones I just showed you, where emotions run high, and in the West, people don't even really understand all of the mechanisms at work in there and why this is working the way that it's working. And that's why I said, are these guys in the streets, are those the guys who are losing the war? I hardly think so. Because in this upside down world that we're living in, you win by losing. Do you understand? You win the war by losing. And this ceasefire resolution at the United Nations, that's just another milestone along the road toward winning the war by winning the public relations war, the propaganda war. And Israel continues to take the bait. The United States continues to take the bait. It's a trap. The massive response militarily, big mistake. Especially in an era, an age of social media, where all of these, honestly, atrocities on both sides can be on full display. But when one side has so much more ability, power to exercise a military response, it generates massive sympathy. And that, in the end, will result in some sort of a resolution to the conflict that will end up coming at a negotiating table, not at the end of a gun. And that's what people here don't really understand. It's that you win by losing. And while all that is going on, I mean, you've got a very similar sort of situation in Ukraine, where the question is, again, should Ukraine have the right to exist as a sovereign, independent nation state? Or should has it ever been a sovereign, independent nation state? Is the United States, is it just a puppet of the U.S.? I would say probably. Or if Vladimir Putin takes over the whole country, and I'm not sure that he even really wants to, would it be right to have the country controlled by Russia? It looks like the whole thing is falling apart there, but in any event, we're looking at April 9th as a date when we might get some sort of decision or approval for this additional funding for Ukraine. The question is, can Ukraine and Zelensky, can they even hold on that long? It looks like Speaker Johnson could even lose his position, and I'm losing my window here. Everything's freezing up on me. One moment while I reboot this page for you. So here we go with Don Bacon saying that it is possible Mike Johnson could lose his position as Speaker because of this, the controversy surrounding the vote in Ukraine. Here's Bacon speaking on Meet the Press, NBC, on this issue today. I've got it for you. There we go. Finally, it's going to roll.
Let me ask you about the Speaker of the House, because you know that some Republicans oppose him putting a Ukraine aid bill on the floor. Do you think he could lose his speakership over this, Congressman?
It's possible. I'm not going to deny it. We have one or two people that are not team. They're not team players. They'd rather enjoy the limelight, the social media. And the fact is, with a 1-seat majority, and we'll end up with a 3 or 4-seat majority after some special elections, but that's not a 435 people. It's a very narrow majority. And one or two people can make us a minority. And I'm of the view, you work with the team. I don't have to get 100%. 80% is the Ronald Reagan rule. But we have some people that if they don't get 100%, they want to bring the House down. And it makes us dysfunctional. And so that's a possibility. I do think there'll be Democrats, though, who do not want to see this dysfunction. And I think they'll probably vote present or maybe not be there for a vote. But it is very likely that after this Ukraine bill, we may have a standoff with the Speaker. I hope the Speaker prevails. He's doing the right thing. It's in our national security interest that Ukraine remain independent.
And that is, that's what I've been saying. This is the way some people see it. Ukraine, they see as being in the national security interests of the United States to remain independent from Russia. Ukraine falls, huge cracks could develop. They already are developing within NATO itself. 75th anniversary of NATO this year. And at the heart of all of this, really, it's Trump. And I know that, I've never really been in favor of sending the money to Ukraine. Didn't think the war had to happen. I know that probably most of the people watching this program also opposed to sending any more money to Ukraine. The question is, where does that leave NATO? Where does it leave Western countries? Where does it leave us in the end if Ukraine falls? How much of an impact would that have on these other countries, and where would it go from there? I'm not really sure. But it does destabilize things. There's no question about that. And as an extension of that, you have everything going on over in Gaza as well. The game here, folks, has been to undermine confidence in government using propaganda, using information warfare, to destabilize the West and undermine support for these wars using both truth and narrative, PR, propaganda, marketing, even psyops, I would say, likely, to undermine support for the government and undermine support for these wars. You take away this public support for the funding, which they largely have, and you can win the war. So there's no doubt in my mind, and there's plenty of evidence to show that we have foreign influence from these foreign countries, not just Russia, but all, other foreign countries as well, including China, in undermining public confidence in our institutions. You end up with protesters in the streets. I think that they're helping to fuel that to some degree. The United States is doing the same thing on the other side in these other countries. We've seen evidence of that even in 2014 in Ukraine, where the United States and the CIA, and we've seen influence from the CIA in places like Iran, where they try to fuel and help along protests in the streets. That's what happened in Ukraine in 2014. You had sort of a color revolution happen there. And there was push and pull on both sides, but it was fifth generation warfare. And we're still seeing it go on here. We just saw the ship hit the bridge in Baltimore. It was so predictable what happened. First of all, you have the incident, we'll call it that, and then immediately you get all of this speculation, people saying it's this or it's that. And today I'm watching a video and I'm seeing, I would say it's sort of a pro-Russian live stream telling people here in North America that it was the result of a cyber attack on this ship and trying to steer people into thinking that it's our own government doing it to us. Then also I'm seeing this narrative coming from what I would say is an anti-China live stream podcast saying that it's also a cyber attack, but blaming it on China. So you've got these counter narratives out there. It's very hard for people to know what the heck is going on and what the truth is. I totally get it. That's why I'm always trying to wait for facts. But here, I'll just show you what was running today, where they're trying to blame the ship incident in Baltimore on the CCP.
I would like to add that 70% to 80% of the normal traffic at this port is military material, much of it destined for Ukraine. Today we are going to bring you a piece of exclusive intelligence that we have received from our supporters within the CCP. The information is very precise. This attack is being carried out by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, using remote towing technology. It is a terrorist attack. The CCP has launched a terrorist operation against the United States on American soil. The impact is huge on the traffic and transportation of the entire United States. The local governor says it has an impact on the whole world, which is not an exaggeration at all. Also, the bad news is that if the CCP can tow a freighter to collapse Baltimore's bridge, they can do the same with any car, ship, elevator, any vehicle you can think of. As long as it has a connection to signal and data, a chip, an antenna, a radio, etc. Because Miles once told me in the past that once Liu Yanping, the former vice minister of public security of the CCP, threatened him and said that they can crash any plane they want at any time. Don't think that if you don't bring your phone, you'll be okay. The CCP can crash anything as long as your device has something to receive the signal, like the radios in cars or planes. So again, I want to emphasize that the two pieces of exclusive intelligence are that it's the CCP that launched the terrorist attack on Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge using the remote towing technology on the freighter. The second information is that there are people in the US government who knew about it but didn't report it, although we can't confirm whether they knew about it before or after the attack. But so far we have not seen any official statement confirming this information.
And so what is that? That is coming from, what is that called? The new, what's the name of that organization? They didn't identify themselves in that, but it's the new federal state of China, I believe. Yeah, New Federal State of China. And that's an organization that's connected to Steve Bannon, who speaks and advocates for them, and Donald Trump. And why is the narrative being spun the way that it is? And I'm not saying it isn't true or it is true. I'm just saying that it's very clear that they're saying that it's China with possible government infiltration and Chinese influence and the deep state in the U.S. being responsible for this ship thing in Baltimore. Now, you can come to your own conclusions. I've seen other people say that it's the United States. But here's the thing. We've also seen authorities come out and say that it wasn't a cyber attack. I went through the whole thing about it could possibly have been a cyber attack. And the shipping industry, very focused on cybersecurity and the risks of cyber attacks. And indeed, we have seen cyber attacks on ships. But was that the case here? I've seen reports, official reports, saying that that was not the case, but the investigation is still ongoing. We don't have all of the information yet. I think anybody telling you that they know for sure that it was, that they know what the cause of this was at this point, without some sort of real tangible evidence beyond what we've been receiving, I'm not buying it. I'm sitting back and waiting. Why is all of this being done? Because different actors, different political groups, different organizations, foreign countries, domestic political groups, they all seek power, and they are all working at destabilizing things or getting people to think in a particular way to support them in the end. And it's very interesting to see the NFSC, New Federal State of China, which is an organization devoted to undermining the CCP and is directly tied to Steve Bannon, which goes back to Trump. Again, politics, as Laurie would say, makes strange bedfellows. This is why everything is so complicated, and people can't really wrap their heads around what's going on. That's also why when you look at that video that I ran from the Lincoln Project, people are probably scratching their heads and they're saying, well, it doesn't make sense to me, or I totally get it. It depends on your perspective on the political situation and how in tune you are with what's going on in politics. But those kinds of videos always drill down and market a message to people in simplistic ways. It's too difficult to do what I'm doing here right now and trying to explain something in its complexities. If you want a mass response to any sort of a message like that, you have to sort of dumb it down, simplify it, and then deliver a message to people that they understand and will react to, usually on an emotional level. I would say that the narratives that we've been getting, that, and maybe a lot of it's true, but the messaging coming through on the side that undermines confidence in our government has been largely, not just largely, but far more effective than the government messaging, which pushes back against it. It's it's a difficult place to be because we don't know what's true and what isn't anymore. And because every day we get up, we see something else delivered to us in terms of information that makes us distrust our government even more. I remember back, if you go back like maybe 8 years ago, people were, even Donald Trump would say this, they hate America. They hate America. Who's they? He would say it's the people on the left. And indeed, we've seen the progressives, the wokesters, all hating America. The anti-colonialists, those who want to decouple from the monarchy, those who say it's just a corporation. You go down the list. All these people, everybody, it seems, wants to tear America down. Even Steve Bannon, in his own way, coupled with the New Federal State of China, connected to Trump, they want to tear America down, in a way, which is, again, confusing, right? Because isn't it America first, and aren't you supposed to be proud of America? Well, I guess you are, if you look at what Biden is doing and the progressives, and what are they doing? Well, they've come out with, just today, well, not today, but this weekend, he issued a proclamation recognizing the Transgender Day of visibility. Here, I'll show it to you if I can find it here for you. So this is what Biden signed. This has obviously enraged, upset a lot of conservatives. Where did we go here with the proclamation? Here it is right here. A proclamation on Transgender Day of Visibility. This is, like a poke in the eye to Christians, certainly conservative Christians, who take exception to this lifestyle and see it as a sin. And to do this on Easter Sunday is to some very offensive, but Biden did it anyway. A proclamation on Transgender Day of Visibility 2024. On Transgender Day of Visibility, we honor the extraordinary courage and contributions of transgender Americans and reaffirm our nation's commitment to forming a more perfect union, where all people are created equal and treated equally throughout their lives. I am proud that my administration has stood for justice from the start, working to ensure that the LGBTQI+ community can live openly in safety with dignity and respect. I am proud to have appointed transgender leaders to my administration and to have ended the ban on transgender Americans serving openly in our military. He says, I am proud to have signed historic executive orders that strengthen civil rights, protections in housing, employment, health care, education, the justice system, and more. I am proud to have signed the Respect for Marriage Act into law, ensuring that every American can marry the person they love. It goes on, and it's signed by Biden. So today is the Transgender Day of International Transgender Day of Visibility, which he has embraced and endorsed at the national level in the United States, upsetting a lot of people in the course of doing that. So this is what we're getting on the flip side. This is the pushback. We're getting the memes and the comedians coming out and poking fun at Biden in ways that will enrage the other side. Here's what we're seeing online today.
All right, everyone. So it's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out. I'm feeling tired. But before I go out, I got to pregame. And the only way I pregame is with an ice cold Bud Light. So good. Happy Friday. All right, everyone.
Fundamentally transform the country. They certainly have done that. It's having an impact on every one of our institutions, even our companies, our corporations, even our first responders. We're here today. Fury as FDNY, Fire Department New York firefighters are forced to remove stars and stripes honoring 9/11 heroes after Democrat lawmaker branded it a fascist symbol. So now the United States, the Stars and Stripes, has become fascist. A downtown New York City firefighting company was told by a local councilwoman that they must remove from their truck a flag commemorating men they lost on 9/11. Progressive councilwoman Carlina Rivera's office told the latter company they had received multiple complaints about the political flag. Authorities at New York City Fire Department commanded a latter company in the East Village to remove a flag honoring 6 of the company's men who perished on 9/11 after a resident complained it was a fascist symbol. The order arrived on March 22nd after a man who the New York Post reports claimed to be a staffer for Progressive Manhattan Councilwoman Carlina Rivera confronted firefighters at ladder company 11 The man pulled up to the firehouse on a bike and told firefighters he works for Rivera and that the politician's office had complained several days earlier about the flag. The thin red line flag, which is a black and white American flag with a red line across the middle, is meant to show solidarity with firefighters who have fallen or been injured on the job. The man reportedly called the flag a fascist symbol and asked to know why it remained up. And if you don't think that this assault on the flag is related to the protests we just looked at in New York and Toronto and other places during this broadcast, you have your head in the sand. Because it's absolutely related. Oh, there's the councilwoman. Maybe we should get her on the show to explain what the heck that's really all about. And what have we seen recently? We saw Osama bin Laden's letter to America recently resurface and be redistributed. Following October 7th, and many Americans now embracing Osama bin Laden as a hero. What a difference time can make, lest we forget. Everything is in a state of flux. People are very, very confused. The country is being fundamentally transformed. I see a lot of people wanting to tear things down, tear down the system, tear down the country. Where do I hear that? Where have I been hearing that? Oh, Occupy Wall Street. Heard it there. Who was shouting from at the top of their lungs, tear it all down. The Occupy Wall Street people on the left. Isn't it interesting to see that messaging wrap around and come back over even onto the freedom side, where just this past week I've seen people who describe themselves as freedom fighters, who are opposed to the government, don't like so much government intervention. They're really sovereign souls or sovereign citizens, believe that the government is a fabrication, not real. It's just a corporation. And say that in one breath, and then on the other, well, getting focused on these Axe the Tax protests that are supposed to happen tomorrow, complain that socialized healthcare is falling apart because of inadequate funding, and we need a whole lot more of it. I saw them complain about electricity production in Quebec, in Canada. These are supposed to be freedom fighters who don't like so much government, but then complain that there are efforts being made to privatize the electrical generating systems, the companies in Quebec, where right now it's primarily controlled by the Quebec government. They haven't been able to produce enough energy. The government's fallen short in producing enough energy for the province, can't produce enough energy to supply industry. As a result, they've actually had some companies that could have come to the province and set up factories. They decided to go elsewhere because they couldn't get enough electricity to the plants that they wanted to build. We've seen other companies leave the province. But I've seen the people on the freedom side calling for more, up in arms, because they want to make sure that the energy system is completely nationalized. There's been a push to bring in more private electrical generation, or even allow some of these big companies to set up their own electrical generating stations to supply energy to the factories so that they could come in and create and set up shop and create new jobs. But this left-wing socialist ideology keeps seeping into the picture, and even people who describe themselves as libertarians or sovereign citizens or freedom fighters and are supposed to be sort of anti-government, less government, they're calling for more government. They want more government health care. They want more government intervention and complete government control, the nationalization of the energy sector in Quebec. Makes no sense. But that's par for the course. Nothing seems to make sense anymore. Like Trudeau's carbon tax. Or his housing plan to help people finally be able to buy a house. He rolled out his plan to help people finally be able to achieve or get the Canadian/American dream in Canada, which is home ownership, only to address renting houses in his new policy platform. It made no sense at all. The only thing that he said that was going to potentially help someone to buy a first home was to say that you could count your rent payments toward a better credit score. But that could backfire. If you don't pay your rent 1 month, that would count against you anyway. So that's no guarantee of any assistance from the government in order to get a down payment for an overinflated, overpriced house that's doubled in cost, more than doubled in cost, since Trudeau has taken the reins of power in Canada. Again, this stuff doesn't make sense, but I guess you really will own nothing and be happy in the end if we continue to have a country that is controlled by the Trudeau government. Tomorrow, the carbon tax increases in Canada. While that's going on, Trudeau is getting a pay raise. He will now make over $400,000 per year. People are upset. They're going to protest tomorrow. The leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, he's taking full advantage. He's got his Axe the Tax campaign, one of the things that's propelling him to new heights in the polls and will likely make him the next Prime Minister of Canada. Let's bring him up and hear what he has to say. Here's Pierre Poilievre with this promo video saying Canada is running out of time.
Time is running out for you to fill up your tank one more time before that price goes up. Justin Trudeau's planning a 23% carbon tax hike on April 1st, just over a day away. That's right, April Fool's Day, and the joke is on you. Everything he said about the carbon tax has been a joke. He said it would never go above 11 cents a liter. It's already well above that, and it's en route to going to 61 cents a liter if he and the NDP are re-elected. He said you'd be better off. But now we know from the parliamentary budget officer that in every single province where the tax applies, families pay more in tax costs than they get back in rebates. The other joke is that the tax is just on gas and heat. Forget it. It's on everything that's transported by truck or train, because our truckers and our trains need fuel. When that goes up, everything goes up. You tax the farmer who makes the food and the trucker who ships the food. You tax all who buy the food. So you should fill up now to avoid the latest Trudeau tax hike. But that will not solve your long-term problem, because if he and the NDP are re-elected, a costly carbon tax coalition will raise your tax again, quadrupling it, in fact. The only way to solve this is to elect a common sense conservative government that will axe the tax so you can pay less and drink home more.
So what Poilievre has been able to do is he's been able to harness the discontent, harness the disruption, the instability, whether it's instability created through propaganda from foreign governments, domestic political groups, or just the reality of economic uncertainty. He's definitely benefiting with his Spike the Hike, Axe the Tax campaign. He'll benefit more again tomorrow, when some people go out to protest. How big that that these protests are going to be? I have no idea. I don't get the sense that they're going to be huge, but they don't have to be for this to make a difference. The cost of living itself is hurting Justin Trudeau immensely. And what are we seeing? Let me just, I lost my place. Let me take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into that because we've got some videos to show you how prices have skyrocketed, contributing to further instability in our society, our country, affecting your pocketbook. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I need just one more moment here, so I'm going to run this because I've got to get this queued up for you. Here we go.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching. Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, so cost of living, an economy in decline, uncertainty over future job prospects, unemployment on the rise. These are all issues that all through history have fueled people's willingness, I guess, to shift their political support left. In uncertain times, people will look to government for solutions. We're seeing that happening right now, of course, because we have the economy in decline, things like artificial intelligence coming online, social media, immigration, rising prices, job opportunities being distributed in new and unusual ways, and inflation at record levels. people are losing faith in government, while at the same time looking to government for solutions. Here are some, but it's about not just cost of living, as some people are saying in these videos, it's about the cost of surviving.
What the hell is going on in Canada right now? I am home visiting my parents this weekend for the holidays. I live in the West Village in New York City, the highest cost of living yuppie area ever in the history of the United States. I am never shocked when I get a dinner bill. I'm never shocked when I go on vacation. Nothing phases me. I've traveled all over the world. Tell me why I come home to Newmarket, Ontario, the suburbs of Toronto, and I'm shocked at the cost of living here. How are Canadian people making it work? Everybody involved with the economy right now needs to be fired immediately. We need to contact the UN and get a binding resolution here. Something sinister is going on in Canada, and I'm determined to get to the bottom of it. What?
So there's that. And then we've got this lady who is a new Canadian from Nigeria. And she also is, well, to say the least, she's having a hard time just making ends meet.
Hey guys, how you all doing? The rates at which things are expensive now. It's no longer only in Nigeria. Oh. Let me show you guys something. See, I used to buy this $4. I bought it today $6 plus, almost $7. I used to buy this $4. I bought this one $8 something. And that's what I used to prepare a lunch for them to go to school. The only thing that is not expensive is pepper. This one $4 something. The price has been like that. See this kidney. I used to buy this kidney $5. This one now is $9. This one, if not for longer throat, I don't know who sent me. This I used to buy it $8, $9. This one is $14. Where will they go? I have boxes of tomatoes in my freezer. I wanted fresh one to make egg, so I decided to guess how much, guys. This one, as techere as this small thing, is $6. Where will they go? Canada. Canada don't even call what's past Nigeria. Oh. See this turkey. I used to buy it $8 to $9. This one now is $14. Let's not reach anything. I get what I will add. You don't even reach or stay do dinner. Only God know where will they go.
And a lot of new Canadians have actually decided to leave the country simply because they're finding that the grass is not greener on this side. In fact, the grass is so expensive over here that they're leaving to go back to the countries they came from in some cases because they simply can't afford to live here. Now, here's this lady who I said embraces this idea that it's not just the cost of living, it's the cost of surviving.
The cost of living in Canada is sick. There is no more cost of living. There is only cost of surviving. My girlfriend and I met for coffees the other day, and she owes a little bit of money to the government, and she was crying to me, saying, I don't know what to do. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm a single mother. Like, I can't afford to live here anymore. So she had a call with the CRA, and the CRA ripped her apart. They said, it is unacceptable that you have not maxed out your credit cards to pay us. It is not acceptable that you are paying $1,000 a month in groceries for yourself and your 3 children. You need to cut back. So she said to them, you're telling me that you want me to take the food from my children's mouth to pay your greedy ass, when it's your fault that fucking groceries are astronomically priced right now. We are all in this together. We are all suffering together. The cost of...
So this is the issue of the day. This is what's going to fuel these protests tomorrow, such as they are. This is what's going to motivate a lot of people to get out to the polls in the next elections, both presidential on the U.S. side and the next federal election in Canada, whenever that is effectively called. Here's this in some sort of translation.
and I love social work. I'm super passionate about it. I'm super passionate about social services, but it's also completely demoralizing to have to literally look these clients in the eyes and say, yeah, you immigrated here for a better opportunity, but I don't fucking know if you're gonna fucking get it, because not even Canadian citizens are getting it. You know what I mean? So the reality is, nobody can afford life right now. Nobody knows what to do. And more people are immigrating here, and more money is, we're going into further debt. And it's like, I can't even afford my groceries, girl, and I'm working 40 hours a week, and I'm a single fucking income. And then I have clients who literally just like don't even have beds, and I'm like, give my fucking client a fucking bed. The city of fucking Ottawa has me fucked up. If they think that I'm not gonna fucking yell at them, because, oh my god, what the fuck are we doing?
So this woman's in social work, and she's getting that emotional about stuff. Well, I get the emotion. That, I have to say, that was a bit over the top. I have to wonder about that. Kind of clickbaity. Nevertheless, the passion for most people is quite real. The problem is quite real. We have seen massive inflation. I've been telling everybody for years that this was coming, and now we're seeing it. And even though we get these stats from the government, the real inflation rate in Canada is probably somewhere between 15 and 20% per annum. And that is a crazy amount of inflation. Very destabilizing. But you know, it is all part of this effort to fundamentally transform the country. Whether you're looking at, you know, the mass immigration, whether you're looking at today, post thanking Canada's veterans and military, referring to Easter as the March holiday season, taking the word Easter right out of it, or whether you're looking at, I don't know, any number of things. The views that people have on religion, transgender issues, any of this stuff. The country has been transformed. I no longer recognize it. And yeah, I think that the government here has been authoritarian, or, you know, they've overreached. They don't know how to deal with the instability, so they've become heavy-handed at times. And that means that when you get another incident like this ship in Oklahoma, which ran into a bridge just days after the Baltimore incident, people automatically go straight for the conspiracy theories again. Now, in this particular case, this barge hit this support beam on the bridge. The bridge did not come down.
Holy hell! Holy shit! Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that barge is loose.
It was moving quick.
That barge is loose.
There's a man standing right there.
And even though the barge hit the bridge, it has been inspected. Traffic was blocked off for a while, but it has now been determined to be still safe, and it has been reopened to traffic, is my understanding. That last word.
Did the guy not see it? Look, that was loose. It's all loose from the barge, I think. Oh my gosh, man. I think he's let go of it. That would get the...
But it sure does seem strange, doesn't it, that you get so many of these things all happening?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Tyler Crawford.
I think
this is US
quite often, though, it's that we just get more focused on these things. Would we have heard about this had it not been for the incident in Baltimore? Probably not. But because of the incident in Baltimore,
No, it doesn't
this
look
then
like any
becomes
injuries or anything, but he
news.
hit the bridge probably really hard. I mean, it bit the bars. It bit the bars. The bars is...
Nevertheless, still a concern. And the push to continue to transform the country continues. Justin Trudeau tonight posting on social media, also acknowledging, just like Joe Biden, the Transgender Day of Visibility. Again, poking, while reaching out and embraced by people on the transgender LGBTQS plus side as a positive thing, poking a lot of conservative Christians in the eye on the other, simply by picking Easter Sunday or endorsing this day on Easter Sunday. And Trudeau saying here, a note to every trans Canadian on Trans Day of Visibility, you matter, you belong. And it's because of your advocacy that we've passed laws to make our country more inclusive, from banning conversion therapy to strengthening protections against anti-trans hate. So thank you. Thank you for being your authentic self and for helping to build a world where everyone can feel safe and proud to be too. And then right underneath it, Liberacat Media says, you misspelled Happy Easter, clown. Yeah. Today is Jesus Visibility Day and nothing else. So, it seems to me that Trudeau, Biden, have maybe intentionally gone out of their way, along with some other people, to do this on this day, knowing that it's going to upset some people. If they had picked a different day, one of many, by the way, that honors the LGBTQS plus I groups, could have picked another day, then you wouldn't have had so much pushback. But this will help further divide the country. It doesn't bring people together. I think that's really the most important aspect to all of this. And here's a list of different days that honor these minorities. Aromatic Spectrum Awareness Week, LGBTQIA plus Health Awareness Week, March 25th to 21st to 25th. March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility. And then on April 6th, just a week away, International Asexuality Day. April 13th, International Day of Pink, Day Opposing Homophobia. April 14th, the very next day, Day of Silence. April 26th, Lesbian Visibility Day. May 17th, International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. May 19th, Agender Pride Day. May 22nd, Harvey Milk Day. May 25th, Pansexual and Panoramic Awareness Day. Is that Pan-Romantic, Awareness Day. The entire month of June is Pride Month. And then you've got the June 23rd Stonewall Day, which is that day from history, and June 28th, International LGBTQ Plus Day. July 14th, International Non-Binary People Day. July 16th, International Drag Day. September 16th to 23rd, Bisexual Awareness Week. And you've got 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many are there. Well, you can see the list. It's lengthy. So, I mean, just in this month coming up in April alone, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different days. There's something going on every week. I didn't realize, honestly, that there were that many. but there are. And I don't have an issue really with these things, but there does seem to be an issue of balance, maybe? Because it just seems to me that if you're talking about all those days or drag queen story time where maybe government money is being used to fund these things, it's being done in a way, I think, to intentionally create an affront to people on the other side. And all of these issues are really being used to divide people, destabilize everything. And so there is truth in it when people say they just want to divide us. And I believe that is largely true. And one of the issues being used right now to divide us, and who's they? They're a shadowy lot, aren't they? I'd say it's not just our government, and probably in many cases isn't just our government. It's other actors, as I've said, domestic political groups, activists, maybe even corporations or big companies that want to achieve things. And certainly foreign actors. And they use it to attack their political opponents. So when Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, who is gaining in the polls, went to speak to the Jewish community just 3 days ago, while also addressing concerns about the welfare of Palestinians, and in particular Palestinian children in Gaza, he's attacked. And the headlines in the paper are, oh, Poilievre's going to pay the price because Muslims aren't going to support him now. But here's what he had to say 3 days ago, Pierre Poilievre, on that issue.
Now, I understand why the political pressures are high. And I understand why our Muslim friends and neighbors are suffering and are legitimately speaking out for the suffering of their loved ones in Gaza and in the West Bank. There's no doubt that the Palestinian people have been made by the Iranian regime and other dictators in the region into a chess piece in an evil chess game. We know that there are dispossessed Palestinian families. Many of them have loved ones here in Canada. My heart goes out to them. I believe that we should ensure that Canadian aid actually goes to the suffering Palestinian people and not to those promoting terrorism in UNRWA. When our government sends money to UNRWA, it commits to an organization whose members were involved in the attack of October 7th, and it takes money away from legitimate aid to real Palestinians who are suffering in Gaza and in the West Bank. We, as a rule, across the world, common sense conservatives under my leadership will be cutting back foreign aid to terrorist dictators and multinational bureaucracies and using the money to rebuild the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you. We will continue to stand up for the right of Israel to defend itself. We will do that. And we will reject any motions and resolutions before the United Nations that unfairly target the Jewish state. We believe that a negotiated two-state solution with Palestinians living in peace and harmony next to a Jewish state, where we build prosperity, liberty, and opportunity for both peoples, and where all the Abrahamic peoples have access, unhindered access, to their places of worship. But we say, I want you to know, I say all these things in mosques. I do go to mosques. I love meeting with the Muslim people. They are wonderful people. And when the issue of Israel comes up, I say, I'm going to be honest with you. I am a friend of the state of Israel, and I will be a friend of the state of Israel everywhere I go. We can no longer have the two, because we can no longer have this business of saying one thing to one group and another completely different thing to a different group. That's what we have. I mean, Justin Trudeau has come up with this political formula, right? He sends one group into synagogues to say one thing, and then he sends another group of MPs into mosques to say precisely the opposite. But here's the thing. Individual MPs don't have a vote at the UN. Individual MPs do not make decision on how foreign aid is distributed. Individual MPs do not have the ability to speak for the entire Canadian government on the world stage, because there is only one Canada. So that formula, while it might make for good politics, to have one individual MP who says the right thing in order to get a seat back and keep Justin Trudeau in power, does not solve the problem of having Canada take the right and principled position, one position for all of Canada, one position around the entire world. So every MP has to decide where they stand, not just what they say. And that stand is ultimately what matters the most. Now, Conservatives will stand with you. I know that it's hard right now. Many of you feel alone. You feel scared. You question whether you should take your mezuzah off the door, the Star of David off your chest, the kippah off your head. I can't even imagine the thoughts that go through your head when you contemplate such things. No one in Canada should ever have to hide their faith in order to feel safe. I want you to know that you're not alone in these struggles, that you have friends. You have friends. I want you to know that you have friends not just in the Conservative Party, but across all of Canada, who will stand with you and will fight for you and work to protect you. And I want you to know, I want you to look at the echo of the unmatched history of the eternal Jewish people. I was able to witness that history and that resilience when then Prime Minister Harper assigned me to represent him on the March of the Living. For those who've not been, it is a walk from the first concentration camp, Auschwitz, to the most prolific death camp, Birkenau. Survivors, their loved ones, and supporters lock arms on this long and painful march. I remember being shaken by the images that I saw there, the prosthetic limbs that had been ripped off incoming prisoners and gathered up in a storage room, the sheared hair, the jewelry, the instruments of torture. I remember when I witnessed all of this, how horrible it must have been for the little children who were marched into those horrendous gas chambers. And what struck me most, though, was when we were taken to a brick building, and the guide said to us, "This is the building where they kept all the stolen plunder of the incoming prisoners, the jewelry." It was there to house all of the treasure. So they named it after a land of great treasure. They actually called it Canada. Because all of those prisoners and guards had seen those advertisements from the Canadian government those decades before, that there was a land of great treasure. So they named the building after that treasure. And the guards would, in a sick joke, taunt the prisoners who had to go and work in sorting in that building by saying, "You're going to Canada today." I thought of all the people who died dreaming of coming to Canada. And it shook me. I remember breaking down in tears, and the ironic sight of Jews comforting me, a Gentile, at Auschwitz-Birkenau. It made me think of how lucky we are to be here and how important it is for us to extend those treasures to the rest of the world by standing up for what's right here, now, and everywhere. But you know what else I saw there? I saw the Jewish young people who were there to honor their grandparents or other lost loved ones. They would put small stones on top of big stones. There were no tombstones or other markings, but it was their way of saying, we're still here. We haven't forgotten you. We still love you. And at the front, a cantor sang a beautiful psalmody, Psalm 23, in Hebrew. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you were with me, O Lord. And that gave hope and inspiration to the people there. But most of all, I saw Israeli flags flying in the wind. The Star of David, the symbol of the Jewish people and now its homeland, was like a symbol of triumph. It said, from the faces of those Jewish young people, we are still here. You did not stop us. You are gone and we are still alive. Think of the trash can of history. It is filled with those who have tried and failed to destroy the Jewish people. From the Pharaoh, to the Haman, to the totalitarian socialist dictators of Hitler and Stalin, all of them have been defeated. And yet the Jewish people still go on. I don't know what the world will bring tomorrow. I don't know, much less 100 years from now. But I do know this, that 1,000 years from now, whatever is going on Fridays, as the sun goes down, there will be a Shabbat in Israel. Those songs will still be sung. The Jewish people will go on, and they will still say, Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
And that's the way it is on this 31st day of March 2024. With the war in Gaza still going on, in spite of the ceasefire resolution that the U.S. abstained from, in spite of the calls internationally for a ceasefire in what is honestly a complex war. As we find ourselves one day away from April Fool's Day, a day when the carbon tax will increase and Justin Trudeau will get a pay raise. A day where the existence, the very existence of Ukraine remains in question. A country that was promised military support for as long as it took from the United States, only now to find itself being pushed back into a position of retreat, fortifying defenses around the capital, Kyiv, tonight. As another country, Russia, which felt threatened by NATO, in its response pushes forward toward the capital of Ukraine. And you have to wonder what this is all about. Was this promise from the United States, from NATO to Ukraine, was this some sort of sick joke from the Biden administration? Unable now to deliver, or maybe unwilling to deliver the military aid that Zelensky is begging for, and people die. Is this some sort of sick joke? This fundamental transformation of our countries, of Western society? I don't know. I just know that we have to carry on. And the best thing we can do here is educate ourselves, stay grounded in reality, and keep searching for real truth. And that's what I'll do tomorrow night when I return at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night here on the Maverick News Channel. Thank you, everyone, for spending your time here with me tonight. A privilege as always. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.